look at how different democracies and countries are approaching technology and thinking about the policy around some of these very big issues that we've all been discussing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Palanivel Thiaga Rajan and Eric Daimler. Thank you very much for coming. I know you had a big conference yourself, which you were running, so to take time out to come for this is deeply appreciated, and thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Peter, you kind of missed the back history of this, leading up to this, but there's been a lot of discussion about how different countries are approaching technology. And there is a sense, Sharad Sharma spoke earlier, and that India has a different approach to technology and how it should be deployed for populations. So can you tell us, is there, from your perspective, and you're in Tamil Nadu, one of the most industrial states, you're ushering new technologies in there, what is that difference in thinking from your point of view?
I was here last week and met with the Minister of State, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and he was talking about wheeling out some policies, but as of now, I'm not sure that there's a very clear national vision. But I can tell you in Tamil Nadu, I said this when I was in finance, and I say it now as the Minister for IT, that to me, the great value, the great confidence that this technology gives me is that the nature of government, which in my opinion is quite profoundly broken, can be substantively improved, and the interaction between government and citizens can be really taken to a different level through this technology. So, of course, there are risks and all that, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I'm hugely optimistic, and that's the two-day conference I've just run, was on the future of IT, and one of the 6 theme areas was AI and deep tech. And we had brilliant people from all over the world, CEOs of big companies and evangelists. And I'm just so excited about the possibility, because I think we are so far behind where we need to be in terms of service delivery, in terms of citizen connect, that I actually see it as a very positive thing. The guardrails will be set by the government of India, because it will have to be for the whole country. But at the state level, we have the great luxury of relatively high income, relatively high education, relatively high penetration, and so I think we can greatly improve the overall outcome for our people.
I'm just going to come back to, we had a session yesterday where a lot of the directors and creators were in a kind of AI denial. They said, this is not going to supplant us. This is just baby stuff. It's for mediocre workers being supplanted, but not masters. And when I first spoke to you, you had a kind of similar reaction, saying that AI was not going to be a tectonic impact in India. So I'm going to come back to...
No, can I just add? I didn't say that it won't be a tectonic impact. I said the cost of processing today and the amount of, there's the politics of it, the queue for getting really powerful processors and the cost of it, and the amount of time it'll take to digitize all the information we have and then to pass it so that machines can be trained. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll take a generation. That's the only point I said. I didn't say it won't be a shift. I just said it won't happen overnight. It's not as if I release a model tomorrow and the world looks different, right? There's a lot of actual execution impediments and money that's going to be, and energy, right? We are barely keeping up with the energy demands of homes and industries. The amount of power that's going to be required to, run all these engines and computing power, that's not a small thing. That's all I meant. There are practical difficulties in the execution, even if the edge of technology is here, to scale that across the whole population will take a significant amount of time.
Right. In the near term, you mentioned this government-citizen interface. Let's just stay within Tamil Nadu, if not for the entire country. What are some of the ways in which you are thinking of deploying AI? What are the really positive uses that it can be put to? And what are some of the harms that, seeing the whole global situation already, are there ways that you all are already thinking about it?
Maybe I should separate this into the role of government as providing services for citizens and, marshalling resources and redistributing them effectively. And then what happens outside of the government's control, like social media or politics, those kinds of things. The government has a very clear but limited role. It's a regulatory kind of body, it is an enforcement, it's a compliance. those things are very hard to do at a state level. I mean, if it's criminal, then it's easier to say it's the responsibility of my police. But if it's the guardrails or the kind of, systemic speed breakers or other things that have to be put in, those have to come at a national level. Those are not things that we can regulate. But if I come on this side of the fence, 30 years ago almost, my doctoral studies were in kind of understanding human cognition and how we could better design computer interfaces to make it easier for people to interact. And I was struck because somebody sent me a video as part of this conference I had yesterday, day before, of Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. And he says, I'm going to say something opposite of what everybody says. He says, in this age of AI, everybody's saying, teach your kids how to do programming, they have to learn how to use computers and all this stuff. He says, I'm saying the exact opposite. Our job is to make the machines understand the people. So you teach your kids how to do farming, how biology should be advanced, how some special field, you give them domain knowledge. And I recently took my son on a college tour, and I was at my old school in Boston. And, tech school of all tech schools, right? MIT is supposed to be the most tech school. And I was so surprised to hear them tell my son, and as part of the group, you have to take 5 courses in the humanities in the first year, otherwise you won't get a degree from here. It could be nuclear engineering, you still have to do the humanities courses, right? So if anything, the role of AI is that we have made the machines understand people, or we will have eventually when we have enough computing power equitably accessible throughout. And therefore in the government, our job is to remove these bottlenecks. I mean, being a minister, I'll still ask a very delicate question. How many of you have enjoyed your experience going to a government office to get some certificate or form or license? Right? I mean, this is the wonderful opportunity for us to eliminate so many of these mundane, random, interferences. Incidentally, the average vacancy rate in the government allocated staffing positions across the country, take a guess. Not just Tamil Nadu, government of India, government of, Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, 40%. 40%. We can't afford to pay any more people than we pay already. And so even taking up the bulk of our resources, we're still running 40% vacancies. This cannot be done by human beings anyway. Now if we get the machines to do what human beings should easily do, I mean, even on the spectrum already, right? You start with going from physical to e-service centers to low-code, no-code models that can actually process right through to the end, then start tagging individuals. Now you can, both yesterday and today, post my conference, I had meals with the CEOs of 2 major companies that are in the AI space, Sprinkler and Unifor. And these are the exciting possibilities we see, that were we to actually digitize enough of our content and put in, the processes that we really intend by the state's design, we can make a 75-year-old, relatively uneducated widow get her entitled pension without ever talking to a human being. That's the possibility that comes. So, that's really the huge opportunity we see.
I guess we're going to need some different order. I don't know what kind of person can think this through, but these are such fascinating problems. You're saying that government just cannot grow any further. It's too expensive to hire any more human beings. It's still, 40% you said is going into that. But at the same time, you have I'm
saying 40% vacancy. And the state's resources, depending on which state you're looking at, somewhere between 60 and 80% of the state's own revenues goes to salaries and pensions of government workers. The state perpetuates itself first before it does anything else. So, yeah.
No, but the question I was going to pose to you is that at the same time in India, there's just a towering employment problem that's going on, And here now even government is thinking of automating and for efficiencies.
No, but the government was never going to be, the government...
Job creator.
Just think about the scale. The state of Tamil Nadu I don't know what the population is because we haven't had a census in like 13 years, but roughly 75 million people, let's say. Out of 75 million people, the voter list is about 60 million people. The workforce is estimated somewhere around 35, 37 million people, active workforce, right? And Tamil Nadu is one of the states where women participation is very high. After that, it's only about 37 million or something like that. How many government jobs are there? Direct government jobs, 950,000. 950,000 out of 30 odd million. Right? Another 7.5 lakhs or 750,000 retirees or something. And then you take all the ancillaries, the PSUs and this and that and the boards and the local bodies and all that. Let's generously say it's double. And the state was never the employer of like last resort. It was a slice. That slice is constrained economically. I don't think that improving the quality of government services anyway reduces the future employment potential of the state. You know, the real economy creates the jobs. Right? That's where we got to focus on what the impact of these things will be.
You know, I just wanted to pose that if the two of you were in a room together without an audience watching, what's the first conversation you all would have?
I'm not sure, but can I just pick up on the point that Eric said about the job loss, right? So there's you know, technology is historically done one of two things. Sometimes it has enhanced productivity, increased the rate of growth and the scale of the economy so much that actually more employment happens, right? Like you think about steam and the first industrial revolution, electricity, second industrial revolution. One of my professors at business school, who's now gone to Stanford, I think, Eric Brynjolfsson, he says, every time IT innovation came about, people were wringing their hands and saying it's going to eliminate jobs. But most of the time what it did was increase productivity and increase the rate and scale of the economy so much that actually created jobs, right? So this is equivalent in some sense, I think. If you're talking about mundane jobs that could be automated, then there's a social discussion to be had. About 10 years ago, I was driving with my sons in Scandinavia, and suddenly you see these signs when you enter into Norway from Sweden, and it says you'll have all these things in place because toll collection will only be done automatically. I'm saying like 10 years ago. And when I was talking to my friends about it, after I went in, they said it's because philosophically we decided that it is not the right kind of role for an educated human in an advanced society to be sitting at the road collecting money. This is just not, you know, in our culture, this is not an appropriate job for a human being to do. Therefore, we automated it in a way. So, you know, all the way from that kind of automation as a part of your culture or your political understanding of the economy to automation. If you're worried about job losses, let me put it a different way. I used to be a consultant in the US when I was a grad student, and I used to go to all these auto factories and OEM suppliers. That industry has completely been decimated. Where there used to be 100 human beings working in a car factory, there are probably 10 now. The rest is all robotic. That's what real job elimination looks like. If you look at what I'm saying for government, at least in our government, I'm telling you there's a 40% vacancy. It's not like there's, you know, a lot of people who are going to be laid off. I'm saying most people have great job security. And if there's a slowdown in the hiring, it's because we can't afford to pay any more people. It's not because, you know, we are getting the work done faster. And as I say, all of us have experience that it's not like the services are being delivered on time, smoothly, without any rent seeking, without any complexity, with all the records perfectly clean right now. So I don't see any downside at all in applying these kinds of technologies. I only see, at least for the foreseeable future, I only see upside. Maybe the losses will come, but not anytime soon, right?
So over there, I mean, I wasn't only talking about the government as an employer.
Yeah.
You know, as a political leader, I'm sure you're thinking about this whole employment problem because it's coming and everyone has their own justifications. But the truth of the matter is that there is no, you know, people used to earlier say set up industry, set up manufacturing, all of that is automated. With AI coming, there's going to be, you know, even more, less human interfacing. So as political leaders, how are you thinking about employment and how are human beings going to be deployed?
See, I look at it slightly differently, right? I don't think any technology is so affordable and so scalable now that you're going to see mass layoffs across all industries, service industries, manufacturing, office jobs, all of that. Maybe I'm just not up to speed on it, but not even in America, let alone in India or Africa or other places. But I see it a different way. Actually, the world has now got a labor shortage problem. I'm not talking India, I'm saying globally. You look at India is now something like 1/6 of the population of the world, right? You take out all the aged people and aging people in the advanced economies where the birth rates have fallen a lot, and now including China. And if you look at the current working age population and those likely to come in the next 20 years, one generation, India is maybe like 1/5 or 1/4. So the world actually needs a lot of labor. I travel constantly to countries like Australia or Singapore or the US or other places. The US happens to draw so many migrants that it doesn't have a labor problem. But you look at the rest of the world, from nurses to hotel staff to teachers to you take any field, there's actually not enough human beings. And many of these things are quasi-manual work. It's very hard to replicate a nurse, right? I mean, yesterday, one of the speakers at my conference was General Officer Commanding of the Dakshin Bharat area. And he said, no machine's ever going to replace a soldier. A soldier is still going to be needed, right? So I think this notion that somehow we are headed into a cliff where suddenly there's not going to be need for human beings, I just don't see that happening. I think at least in a global economy, our job as politicians, as policymakers, is to create a workforce, and that's my Chief Minister has been saying that for 2 years, that he wants Tamil Nadu to be the human resource capital of the world. Some of it will be work coming here because we have brilliant people and they come and invest. Some of it will be work done because our economy scales up and we create more demand and more consumption here. Some of it will be out-migration temporarily, and they'll come back and do better things. Some of it will be permanent out-migration. That's happening whether we like it or not. Yeah. Right?
I mean, this is a very long conversation and we are running out of time, but as much as you said there's a lack of human resource, but it is also an unemployability problem because
completely
there's no
agree.
skilling, and this thing is moving so fast.
Yeah.
I don't think even coders will know how to code fast enough to keep up with the machines. So, I mean, there's an employability problem because there isn't a skill. I mean, there isn't enough skill. There is human beings out there.
My point is that because AI and the development of computing capability and data and the machine's ability to learn and understand human beings is going so rapidly, you don't need to learn programming languages. You need to be able to ask the right kinds of questions. You need to understand human psychology. You need to understand logic. You need to understand rhetoric. NASSCOM, the local chairman, is Rajesh Nambiar of Cognizant, and we had him at some Government of Tamil Nadu event, and he said, do you know what the most commonly used programming language in the world is today and is going to be? And everybody said X and Y, and he said, no, English. He said, right now, everybody is doing prompt engineering for how to make these machines learn. So they have to ask the right questions to be able to learn, and that's in English. What about in Tamil? What about in Hindi? What about in Kannada? In my view, it's actually going to be a lot easier to train somebody to be successful in the world of AI than when I used to teach how to make simulation models as a grad student 20 years ago. They had like heavy coding on one particular language, on one particular model, on one particular... If that went out of style, they had to start over again. Now they don't have to, right? The machine will adapt. So I actually think it's going to be much easier to train people. Of course, you have to train them, and you have to train them in the right things. But it's going to be much easier to skill people in a new paradigm than it was in the old paradigm.
Thank you.